cheat, but come back home afterwards. Cheat, but leave no trace of another man's perfume. However, a husband always knows when another man's sweat is mixed in with his woman's. So my grandfather never really got over sharing his wife. 40 years later, these women still lived inside of him. He screamed at her in his sleep, "You, get these men out of my house." She asks him, "What women, old man? What men, old man?" He says, "That gentleman sitting in my sofa, sipping mighty like he's waiting for supper." She tells him, "Old man, you are screaming at the coffee table." He says, "You think I am stupid? I know his legs. I know they were wrapped around you last night." "Woman, I know his face. It was buried in your chest last night." She looks at him and says, "Old man, you're screaming at the ironing board. You're going crazy." You see, my grandmother's voice sounds like a throat filled with gunpowder as she yells at him for yelling at all the men that are not there anymore. Who knew that resentment could cancer the mind? And now my grandmother is scared that one night as she heads downstairs to get a glass of water, her husband might see movements in the dark and mistake it for her thrusting with another woman. Then he will grab the nearest glass and just keep hitting and hitting and hitting until he figures out why he stayed married to her in the first place. She is scared that he might kill her while she's bending over trying to water the plants. But do you know what it's like? Handing over a plate of your ribs to a woman that has already eaten. Seeing another man's rib meat stuck between her teeth when she smiles at you. Knowing exactly how other men taste like each time your woman kisses you. Do you know how hard it was for him to do it with a family? To put his heartbreak on hold and raise their children? To stitch a smile on his face when his marital sheets were tangled in sin? You see, during the day, my grandmother broke all our wedding vows for swung open legs. During the day, my grandmother went to work. My grandfather provided for the family. At night, she came back to him with an open and used heart. And now my grandfather's heart is like an open gun mouth ready to fire. My grandfather is ready to love his wife to death. Except that this time it could be his bare hands literally killing her. You see, love is a funny thing. When I was 16, I thought I knew exactly what love looked like. And even though I'd never been in love yet, I thought if love came wandering into my living room, I would tell that it's her at first glance, because to me, if love ever arrived, she would like all my poems. Love would make herself uncommon to the other boys. Love would make herself mine. Love would even kiss me before I brushed. And I knew she was there somewhere. I just might have been checking the wrong classrooms. Maybe I kept texting the wrong contacts or looking at the wrong women's faces for too long. But I knew she was there. You see, when love finally showed up, she didn't like any of my poems. Love did not know anything about being uncommon to the other guys. Love did not want to belong to me. Most days, she wanted to belong to herself. Love could not kiss me before I brushed while she supervised. Instead, love became the reason I could not hang out with my female friends. Love had so many admirers, and sometimes I wondered if there were as many as her lovers. You see, love was not mine on the nights she went out with the girls, because on those nights, she kept on having innocently random conversations with innocently random cute men that innocently and randomly noticed her. Love is a funny thing, but stupidly, I gave love the keys to my heart, and she locked me out of it. Love even changed the locks to my heart. You see, when love finally opened up the new locks, she had redesigned my heart, and that made me love myself. I spent so much time with love, more than I could ever spend with myself, but sometimes that made me feel like love was stealing me away from myself. But stupidly, my love for her just grew. It stretched like a newborn baby's chubby cheeks. And slowly by slowly, love changed, disappeared, unwanted me, did not feel like making love to me for months. Love became a really funny thing. You see, in the beginning, this love looked at me in ways that no love language could ever describe. In the end, she took all the parts of me that I actually needed. In the end, love told me that we were better off apart. Love is a really funny thing. But society says, even in love, be a man. Even in love, men will always be men. You see, be a man, they say. But I think a man should be a man when he drops his first tear over heartbreak. A man should be a man when his daughter brings home a boy. A man should be a man when he cries himself to sleep. A man should always be a man in weakness. Men will always be men. Men will always be men with feelings. Men will always be men with disappointments. Men will always be men in love, at work, in conversations, during losses. Be a man, they say. You see, to the next love of my life, I'll exaggerate about your beauty in my poems, even on the days when your hair is a mess. I'll tell you that I love your thick eyebrows, even after watching you draw them in front of the mirror. To the next love of my life, I am not planning to date you until further notice. I'm planning to date you and let your father notice. To the next love of my life, I just want to be happy with you. I just want to be a man and weak and crying and vulnerable and a man again with you. And I don't care how hard it is for us to get there. As long as we want the same thing, as long as you let me be a man and weak and crying and vulnerable and a man again, I'll never give up on that. Thank you.